I'm using AI often as a prompt to remind me what stories might make sense to convey that might convey that point or might be similar or related. So that's been helpful. I forget if we've actually done an episode on this, but I know we've talked about it. But when I'm analyzing content, one of the things that I do from these videos, from things like that, is I look for the stories. I look for the metaphors. I look for the examples. I look for those things that I can extract those out because that becomes part of the unique mix of how somebody conveys their point. And that's ultimately our goal. Our goal is, for one thing, I think in order to stand out in this world when it's creating content, whether you're leveraging AIs, you do have to have your unique point of view, right? Your unique way of seeing things. Welcome. In this episode, we are going to be diving into a combination of things. We're going to be talking with Charlie here about something that he's been doing with his service, Referrals While You Sleep, a way that they've been looking to upgrade a bit of the offering of rollout that you call it 4.0, and some of the difficulties that he's running into in the process, and how that reveals a bit more about the heart of how AI works for this world of trying to create content, trying to do it well, trying to do it at scale, and hopefully walk away with some lessons on what you can learn about how to realize some of the value that AI has to offer while also dealing with some of the sobering realities about what it takes to really have success in it. Let's go ahead and dive into it. So I'm Zach Hammer, and then here with me I have Charlie Madison with Referrals While You Sleep. Charlie, why don't you go ahead and talk us through a little bit about, as a reminder for people, what does Referrals While You Sleep do? And then what is the shift that you've been trying to make, and what's the struggle that you're coming up with in the process?
So Referrals While You Sleep is done for you personal marketing on social media. That means we take the content that you
Right.
already have or you create and we reformulate it so it becomes post and ads on social media so that you are the only choice to the people that know you. A lot of what we do is videos. And so a lot of times we call them duo videos that last
Right.
anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes. And it's just like what me and you are doing. It's a conversation. So what we've been working on is taking that, putting it into a system that cuts it up into little 30 to 90-second viral clips, and then creating posts from that. And we've ran into some
Right.
issues with that. Like we can create the post pretty well. The first issue was the post that we were creating did not actually speak to what the audience was. So for example, with my real estate clients, the AI
Right.
system was just grabbing random stuff. And so I had to create a client context. So this is the realtor's world. This is what they're about. This is who they serve. Here's a list of
Right.
keywords to look for. So I built this whole context for the realtor. So now I give it to AI and say, find clips from here. As you say, show the divine spark from this realtor to their clients. And this is what
Right.
their clients want. So we've got that. And the next part was once we've got that clip to take the transcript and create a really nice caption for that on Instagram, on Facebook, for stories, for reels. And by default, the captions on
Right.
those with the current AI systems are horrid from what I've seen. We call it
Right.
generic slop. It is
Right.
random. The next part is to be able to take that little bitty transcript and actually have it be something that looks like that shows the brand and doesn't look just completely
Right.
formulaic and actually speaks to the
Right.
viewer. If my client was actually working with AI to create a really nice caption, what would it be? And so we're trying to automate that at scale, and
Right.
it's gone horribly wrong.
That makes sense because you're ending up, like you said, with the generic slop, right?
So now at least the caption is much more focused. So using the realtor example, from the realtor to the realtor's clients, and it actually talks about the video.
Right.
But right now the issue is it's
Right.
very formulaic. Like the last batch, every single first line had two asterisks in the front and the back. It had a little line, and it had one, two, three, four, five, and then it had a call to action. And if you see 20,
Right.
30 of those on someone's post, this is pretty formulaic here. I actually
Right.
went to your post, your feed today to show my team because you use AI to create your
Right.
post, but your posts look organic. It has your divine spark. They're not
Right.
all the same. It's unique. And my belief is that if
Right.
someone knows that the post is artificial, they're going to ignore it. And so, how do we leverage AI? I mean, that's what you
Right.
all do. How do we amplify the intelligence, not replace it? And we've gotten stuck at this part so far.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Really, what I look at in this is I look at continually trying to decode what's happening naturally when a human does it. Where does that show up? How does somebody determine what's the right mix of what looks right, what feels right? And honestly, like part of what you're seeing from my feed is while I'm using AI to help me create it, there's a lot of me still there and present right now. And that's really what we're working toward is we're trying to figure out what is that right level of where the person shows up in the ways that are uniquely them. That essentially you're providing AI with the context that is what's necessary to create varied formats that are relevant to people. And it does, it takes a mix. So there's a number of things that's been helpful to me in this process. So I've been on a journey for the past 30 days or so of just trying to make sure I'm posting every day on Facebook. And the way that my process typically looks is that I run a book club every couple of weeks. I do meetings with clients. I do just my day to day work. And I will look for opportunities where I'm thinking about what's going on in my life right now, either in the work that I'm doing or in the things that I'm doing in my life that create something that I feel like the people that I'm looking to serve might find valuable. So I start there. I start with what are the things that are happening. And that's important because I think the longer we go, the more that your personal experiences and your own stories are part of going to be what's a marker to let people know. Even if somebody used AI to help create this, AI can't have created all of this because this is specific stories, specific examples from this person's life. Imbuing that in there helps to make things be more real. And that might be part of what you're detecting from my stuff is that I'm like, anything that I'm generating, I'm feeding it in stories, or maybe I generate something and it goes one direction. I'm like, oh, that helps me think of a different story. That helps me think of something that actually does relate really to my life and something that I've encountered or something that I'm dealing with. So I'm using AI often as a prompt to remind me what stories might make sense to convey that might convey that point or might be similar or related. So that's been helpful. I forget if we've actually done an episode on this, but I know we've talked about it. But when I'm analyzing content, one of the things that I do from these videos, from things like that, is I look for the stories. I look for the metaphors. I look for the examples. I look for those things that I can extract those out because that becomes part of the unique mix of how somebody conveys their point. And that's ultimately our goal. Our goal is, for one thing, I think in order to stand out in this world when it's creating content, whether you're leveraging AIs, you do have to have your unique point of view, right? Your unique way of seeing things. That's going to be there regardless of whether or not you think it's there. It's going to be the combination of your own experiences and how they cause you to see the world. It's going to be who are the people that you think are doing it completely wrong? And why do you hate this way of doing something? Why do you hate that? Those things end up being really helpful. And actually, they've started to inform a little bit about how I think about composing those posts as well. One of the things that works really well is to be contrarian. If everyone else believes one thing is true and you're like, I think that's completely wrong, man, that creates some good content, right? Where you could leverage that. But you're always looking for that. And so one of the things that I've built out is actually a process to take things like recordings from episodes like this. I even put my meetings through it. So when I'm meeting with my assistant or when I'm meeting with clients, I'll take those through this and I'll actually extract what are some of the key points that were made, what are some of the metaphors and stories and those things that went along with it in order to build out what I call these content packs. Those content packs can then be tied together with templates, and those templates are what you actually create the post off of, right? Because you have enough context there in order to create the ideas. I'm still in the process of discovering that and building that. And I'm doing that through the process of building it for myself, ultimately sharing it with the people who are part of my mastermind, like yourself. So we're building out these systems together. But it really is, it's the work of starting to be able to discover what are the underlying reasons that actually build up to what we're seeing work. Right? What is that? What is it that makes somebody sound uniquely like them as opposed to somebody else? Because it's not that one way is right or wrong. Like Gary Vaynerchuk, for instance, has a very specific style. It's like this combination of slightly abrasive, yet he's also been leaning into a lot of empathy as well. He has both of those at play. Hermosi has his own style too, where it's a little bit more to the blunt, abrasive, just cut and dry. Here's the answer. And then you have like other people, like what's the name of the founder of CD Baby?
Yeah, I know what you're
I don't
talking
remember
about.
that.
I can picture his blog, and I've read it.
Yeah, I feel like his style was much more in the vein of there wasn't much of abrasiveness. It was a whole lot more. You can do this. Like what I'm doing isn't super special. Like I figured out some stuff. Like I don't. It just felt a whole lot more. There's just a different feel to it. Yet all of these people are incredibly successful. They've built their influence and they find their audience.
Derek
Right.
Sivers.
Perfect. There you go. That's his name. And so that's part of what I've become clear on too, as I look and I figure out there are lots of different ways to be successful with this in terms of the style. And really part of that is figuring out like, what is your style? What are your beliefs about the world? What are the things that you do that's going to be part of your style, part of your voice? Do you want to call people out on their crap more? Or do you feel a little bit more of the side of, I want to be empathetic? Because different things are going to appeal to different people, but being able to hold true to whatever is your style, and even further when we're looking at doing it on behalf of clients, being able to help them extract that, right? What is your view of this? How would you say this? What's more in line or less in line? And so that's part of what we're doing is we're almost mapping the DNA of what makes up content, right? What is your point of view? What's your style? What are the templates that are being used? And then the more that you could do that and you can map that, the more that you could replicate it with less inputs, right? So you take something like a recording, and from that, you're able to extract, here's what that recording would look like in your style as these four different templates. And then that one recording has now become those other things, but they feel like you. They feel like they've done the heavy work of what would that look like. And yeah, it's an interesting time right now. What's been most helpful for me right now is understanding that tension between what's possible while still realizing the value of where we are now. And the value for me right now, at least personally, I know that I need to be getting the content out in order to be seen. And I know as of yet, I haven't seen anybody else develop a good way of automating that. And so I do still need to, how can I look through my history? How can I look through my stories? How can I look through what's going on this week? How can I look through the recordings and use that and then use AI to amplify it to get me started down the path of remixing it. But along the way, what I'm doing and what I'm building is I'm figuring out every step of the way, I'm taking, what did I do there? What did I figure out? What is the principle? And I'm starting to build that system behind it. And so I think that's the key, is that the system is there and is coming. And we've seen this. It's like slowly, piece by piece, aspects of this are getting better and aspects are getting easier, but there's still humans involved in the overall process. And I think there's always going to be to some degree, but we're going to be able to have humans be more and more focused on what is uniquely necessary for them while keeping the space and opportunity for technology to do more of the heavy lifting and mapping that out. Like that's what I'm seeing. Like the DNA of content, it's the style, which is essentially, how does it feel? Is it optimistic and joyful? Is it pessimistic and contrarian? Is it blunt to the point? Like that's all the how does it feel. You have other things that people typically deploy, which is more what I call tactical. And tactical things are going to be along the lines of, am I using a lot of repetition? Am I doing a lot of alliteration? Am I using strategies that are geared toward persuasion, right? Am I using simplification, right? So I think about strategies like that. How am I strategically trying to educate or persuade or build influence, right? And then the other one that ends up adding up into formatting or into your style is going to be formatting. And formatting is going to be, I like to think of it, if I could do it with a hotkey on my keyboard, that's formatting, right? So it's like bulleted lists and emojis. How often are they showing up? Am I using bold? When, where, and how often? That kind of stuff. All of that adds up into the style. But then separately, what's your point of view? What's important? What matters? What substantively are you looking to convey? And then when you look to convey those things, this is what I call a content pack. Here's the point and kind of the idea, the context of what I'm conveying. Now, when I do this, what are the stories? What are the metaphors, the illustrations, and the powerful quotes that I use to convey that content? And then the combination of that, a content pack, plus a style map that says how you say things, and then combine that with a specific post type template, that gives you everything that you need to create like this infinite variety of stuff. And then separately, there's like knowing specifics for the specific platform that you're looking to do. So your strategy on Instagram will definitely look somewhat different than your strategy on Facebook and YouTube and Pinterest and all of those, right? Because they have their own language, they have their own thing. So long term, need to build up a mastery of those different platforms, or at least somebody does, in order to be able to convey your point of view into those different formats. And for me, I'm focusing right now on Facebook and building out my mastery around there and getting better at that process. but ultimately like mapping templates plus other ideas to extract that. Then it starts to become, you could take, here's a recording of somebody talking through their ideas, and fairly naturally their stories are going to come through, their points of view are going to come through, how they see this is going to come through. You got to extract it and then feed it back into AI. So you almost have to refeed it back into it, where it's, no, I want you to think about things this way, and it'll follow your guidance, but you have to know how you want it to do it. And it's a level of introspection that I think we rarely are doing, but it's what's necessary to get the most repetition out of the process.
That's a good
Yeah.
point. I like that. You said
Anyway,
the part that stuck to me is it's almost like telling, what did I hear? I don't want you to just go with the consensus. It makes me think of, I don't know if I agree with it or not, but I hear a lot of Hollywood movies now are boring because they follow the plot line, like How to Skin the Cat, I think is what it's called. It's a
right,
book that says minute by minute, here's how you make a movie.
right,
And that movies are boring because they follow that
right,
exact thing and it's going to happen from the rip. And
right,
in the olden days, before that, 1980s and 1990s, the movies were not generic in that way. What I hear you is AI is
right.
trained to find consensus, and you almost need to tell them, one, do not find consensus. Two, one of the things that I've used well, only use the context that I give you. Do not try to supplement it with consensus content almost.
And yeah, I think the reality is being able to be very clear and specific seems to really help AI know how to deliver on what you're asking for. So, a good example of a vague term is make this compelling, make this a good social post. That's vague. What does that mean? All it's going to think is, it's going to think, what have I seen the most of? Right. And so you're going to get something that looks like, anytime somebody's talking about a good social post, what does that mean? Rather than what actually is a good social post. And really, the only way that you discover that is through experience, right? What's good or bad as a social post is based on your results. And if you've found that for your audience, this specific style of, I do zero line breaks and it's just a big wall of text with a very specific kind of picture, if you found that's what works for you and your audience, that's what a good social post is, regardless of if everybody else is saying that it looks something different. If you're seeing people respond to it, if you're getting the results that you want out of it. And so what you want AI to do, instead of making a good social post, is you want them to replicate the style that you've proven out, right? And you want it to replicate, do it this way because I've proven it out, and say it like me because I've proven it out. Or if you're not there yet, if you don't have something proven out, then you want to be able to test different things to be able to see what is working so that I can prove it out and figure out, all right, it works when I do it this way, so let me do more of that, or let me do it more this way and make that more of my mix. Another good example is like, if we wanted to write something unique, we almost need to show it what we mean, because it doesn't know what unique is. In its world, it doesn't know what it gave you in the last conversation compared to right now. So you might be able to get unique by asking it, do it completely differently this time. Act like a completely different person. Forget everything that you know and do as if you were a turtle instead. Right. And then it's able to reform and come at it from a unique point of view. But otherwise, like when you want it to give you completely different styles of posts, you have to give it completely different styles of posts to replicate. Because that's really what it knows how to do. It knows how to respond to what you're saying and somewhat match it and follow that style and follow those guidelines. But if you want 10 different unique things, you almost have to be able to provide it 10 different unique examples, which means you have to formulate 10 different things that each feel like they're their own way of conveying the same idea, and starting to be able to discover what is it that makes something unique. And for me, what I found, you can have the same exact template of a post, but if you pair it with a unique story and a unique point that you're trying to make, it might be the same exact template, but it feels very different, right? Because the story and the point are unique. So even though you might be following a similar structure, that can help a ton. And starting to be able to discover that, I think that's really what makes a massive difference on leveraging AI. And then as we start to look to make it more systematic, I think those of us who are building out our libraries of, how do we understand this? How do we understand what makes for unique posts? What are the different templates? What are the different stories? How do we extract that? I think that's what's going to be able to set some of us apart, where we can take less of an input and still create a lot more variety. Because that's the powerful thing that people miss. It's like open source software, where it may not be the best at first, because You have people volunteering their time in order to improve something compared to people who are paid to create the same thing. There's more motivation. But what's interesting about open source, it's like as soon as it's solved for everybody. And then the next person builds on top of that, and on top of that, and on top of that. It's like as you're building out these systems, we start to build out this thing. I've been on this journey figuring out how to do social posting with AI. And so I'm building out all these systems every step of the way so that I don't have to do this part again. I've already figured it out, right? I'm able to just leverage what I've already done. And so it starts to become this thing when you build out the system that way. It may take more work on the front end, but you end up in a spot where your ability to replicate and repeat goes through the roof. And ultimately, that's what we're building toward is trying to figure out that balance, both for you with what you're doing with referrals while you sleep, of saying, what can we do to build out our system to really leverage this? And what you're discovering in the process is we're not quite there yet to really having this clearly documented to be able to say, how do we take these inputs and get the kind of outputs that we're looking for? But it's coming and it's doable, but we're still in the process. I think about it like a sculptor. And so you have to have a really clear picture of what is the sculpture, and then you're removing everything that isn't that. That's what we're doing in this process is like getting more and more clear on what that sculpture is
Right.
and getting more and more clear on that. The clearer we get, the more we can remove everything that doesn't matter and build out the things that do.
One thing that I liked is you said incremental improvements, but I got the idea incremental
Right.
improvements create exponential results. Because with humans, when you create a training, if that human leaves, you got to retrain the next human. With AI, when we create the process, the AI is not leaving. We can keep improving the process
Right.
without having to really even consider what if the human leaves and I've got to train someone else. So that's incremental exponential improvements.
Right.
And the other was we need more context in that we might have to go deep. What does good mean? What does unique mean? Because it goes to NLP in a lot of ways. That word means a bunch of different things. And if we don't define that word, it will go out and find the general consensus. But our world and our clients are
Right.
unique. And so right
Right.
now, I see this in you. It takes massaging, it takes back and forth as we're building those incremental pieces instead of it taking you
Right.
$2,000 to hire a copywriter to create 30 posts for you in the last year or the last month. Instead, it took you, I'm guessing,
Right.
an
Right.
hour, one post, maybe 30 minutes the next, maybe 25 minutes the next. So you're getting to where you can hone in on your different pieces incrementally, which create the exponential results.
I think probably in one of the next episodes that we do, that's part of what I want to go over is I want to say, what am I discovering actually even matters on this, right? Because there's a lot of testing right now and a lot of figuring it out, not just on the AI side, but even on the content strategy itself, right? To that purpose. And so there's been a lot that I'm figuring out on that front. But really, it's like the first part of it is being able to have enough to test and have enough content to put out to even be able to see the results of what those tests might mean. And yeah, it does. It takes the massaging, it's understanding like I'm able to now have a process that feels easy to get a post out even when I'm tired because I have tools that I could fall back on that don't require me to think through what do I post about today. I'm able to go back to a process to use AI to get me past a blank page so that the momentum builds on itself and still I'm able to get it done to build that out meaningfully. And then I start to be able to see, you know what? I've discovered a thing that now can be done by an assistant. That's not how it's gotten yet with the social posting, but in the process of looking at like everything that way, I've discovered a number of things that are that way, where it starts to become an assistant can do this, and it's like slowly chipping away at testing and seeing what's possible, and then deploying on it to see, oh yeah, this thing that used to have my input now can be done with my assistant very easily. I love it. So yeah, as you're part of the AMP Intel mastermind, you'll get to see and discover as we build out these tools and build out the system. Ultimately, that'll be probably what informs how you end up building out some of those features into what you're doing with referrals while you sleep and how we're leveraging in general. So it'll be cool to see how that ultimately comes together because this really is, I think, more than anything, that's a principle I'd like people to know and understand in this. There are definitely aspects of this that are figured out and are getting better and are being discovered. There's aspects of this that we just keep improving on and we keep figuring out further and better refining them and getting better systems put together. And if you want to be part of that journey, if you want to come along with us and want to be part of it, definitely reach out to us. Hit us up at zachhammer.me/contact and let me know that you're interested in that. We do close down the mastermind and open it up at some points. Depending on when you reach out, it may or may not be open. It may or may not be available. We take people into a limited capacity to make sure that they're able to get people on board and then part of the crew. But yeah, definitely reach out if you're interested. And Charlie, thank you for coming on and walking through what you've been up to and how you're seeing the struggle of trying to get this stuff implemented while we are still unlocking what's working well.
Yeah, thanks. Here we go.
Indeed. All right. We'll catch you on the next one.
Thanks for tuning in to the Real Estate Growth Hacker Show. Remember, done is better than perfect. To turn the marketing ideas and tactics you just learned into real growth for your real estate business, visit us at realestategrowthhackers.com. If you like this episode, consider sharing it with another real estate professional who could benefit from the information. Or maybe you'd like to subscribe to the show to never miss an episode. You can leave a rating or review on iTunes with your biggest takeaway, helping this show to reach and help more people just like you. Thanks again, and we'll see you on the next episode.